The individual time trial is called the Race of Truth, a lonely race with a singular goal. To win the Tour of California, Levi Leipheimer needed a huge performance, and some of the best time trialists in the world stood between him and victory. While American David Zabriskie could not rise to the occasion, his teammate David Miller did, setting the time to beat at every check. World champion Fabian Cancellara was not up to speed, a giant disappointment for the Swiss speed demon, and so it came down to one man in search of time. Levi had every answer at every turn. He won the stage, he increased his overall lead, and 2 days stand between him and victory. Starting today with a raucous ride over the Ventura Hills. Eternal vigilance, the price he must pay. The Tour of California rolls on, next on Versus. It's now 7 days since the riders set off from Palo Alto in the Amgen Tour of California, and today they come down from Santa Barbara to the finish here in the city of Santa Clarita, a city, by the way, that has 30 miles of bike paths, but it has only one finishing line for the riders today, and the winner will get to stand right here on the podium. Hello everybody, welcome back to our coverage here on Versus of the Tour of California. I'm Phil Liggett with Bob Roll and with Paul Sherwin. Well, yesterday in Solvang it really was the Race of Truth, the individual time trial, and frankly, Paul, the race leader Levi Leipheimer was superb.
You can say that he stamped his authority all over that individual time trial, but it now puts him right on the top pedestal, and a lot of riders will be queuing up behind to try and knock him off. And I think a lot of riders from Team CSC will actually be looking to do something on today's stage, which is a very good racing course. And we saw last year Team Discovery Channel put into difficulty on exactly the same route.
It's kind of two races today, one to take out the stage and get a little bit of the glory for the day, and that might be a rider from CSC. There's also the boys who want to attack Levi. This was a tough stage last year, and it was CSC who actually did all of the attacking. But it might be Slipstream today, Bob.
Slipstream has two riders just behind Levi Leipheimer in the overall classification, and I'm looking for a man called Christian Vande Velde to put in a really dangerous attack. Astana has a lot of work to do, but it's going to be a very tough bike race. The course not mountainous, but very hilly, undulating throughout the day, and that provides us attacking terrain. And I think Vande Velde, maybe some other Slipstream riders as well, and CSC to go in the break, put Astana under pressure.
All right, well, let's first of all remind ourselves then how Levi Leipheimer has come to lead this tour by almost a minute. Yes, he's come back really from the riders at the back of the field to lead this race. It all happened on the Sierra Road on Wednesday when he used his teammates to soften the field up, and then he went clear with the Dutch rider Robert Gesink. Then he pile drive towards the finish there, trying to gain as much time as possible over his rivals. He didn't get a lot of time, 13 seconds in fact. He bridged over Cancellara. Then came the Race of Truth in Solvang yesterday. His one ambition to build on those 13 seconds. He rode superbly over the hills.
He certainly did. It was a dominating performance by Levi Leipheimer in a discipline which he started to become rather good at. And when he crossed the line, he'd beaten the next best rider, David Miller, by 29 seconds, giving him a 49-second advantage in the overall standings.
Yes, and he's prized open 49 seconds now, and it's ahead of David Miller, but Cancellara did a bad ride. He's now 78 seconds back in fourth. Gustav Larsson there in fifth, and Vande Velde up to third. David Zabriskie hangs in there in sixth, but he's 136 back now. Chris Horner, a danger man perhaps, at seventh with 207, but he's a teammate of Leipheimer. And looking further down at notables, George Hincapie 23rd, Bobby Julich 24th, Jason McCartney in 54th for Team CSC. Let's have a look at the stage today as we head out of Santa Barbara.
Riders leaving the ocean behind them, moving inland to Santa Clarita, but I have to say in the early part of the race, that's when the race is going to happen. There are 4 King of the Mountain sprints, 2 intermediate sprints. The last winner here down in Santa Clarita was no other than JJ Hayedo.
Yes, the Dukes of Hazzard, BJ and the Bird, Chips and Melrose Place, all filmed in and around the route today. As we look back now, the peloton having ridden out of Santa Barbara here, and as we expected, we're off to a terrific fast start, Bob.
Very fast start, a lot of riders looking for the breakaway, and this is what happens when you're the leading team. There's David Miller. He sits in second place on general classification. Don't expect him to go in the breakaway. Maybe one of his teammates, especially Christian Vandevelde, there's Stuart O'Grady, who was the man of the stage last year, put in a very attacking ride. There probably will be a break, and then there's going to be a huge amount of work for Astana to defend the lead of Levi Leipheimer.
Well, there's Fabian Cancellara nearest camera, and he admitted he was very tired in his speciality yesterday. He'd worked hard to try and contain Leipheimer over the Sierra Road, and he paid dearly yesterday. Leipheimer, in his own words, had won the best time trials of his life, and that's a result. He's now the leader. Well, a breakaway already getting clear, and in these 8 leaders, Chris Horner is on the attack, the Astana teammate of Leipheimer.
Well, I think Horner there with the yellow shirt on his shoulders, I think he'll be more on the defensive than anything else. He's been sent up into this group to keep a representative in the group for Team Astana, and in fact, it's a very good player that they're moving there because of Team Astana. They've actually got a man who can cover the moves like this.
So the game of chess is on, perhaps trying to move Horner up towards the yellow jersey of his teammate Leipheimer. We'll take our first break. Welcome back to the beauty of California here, and this is the lead group. Well, Chris Horner, the danger man, he's got the yellow top on his jersey, and Paul, they were never going to allow that move.
Certainly not, but what it did was it put the pressure on the other teams because Chris Horner is a teammate of the overall leader in this race, Levi Leipheimer. I have to say, Bob, I think that was a clever move tactically by Team Astana.
Very tricky move by Chris Horner there, very astute going in that break, and the team doesn't have to chase.
All right, well, it's time for Bob Key's key to the race now. Bob, tell us how it's all going to happen.
This is going to be a very tough testing stage. If you're Levi Leipheimer or the other overall men, you've got to stay out of trouble. The appropriate vigilance is the key to this course. You can only chase the riders that are dangerous. The riders that are not dangerous, that are over 10 minutes behind, you've got to let them go and dose out your effort.
All right, well, let's rejoin the action here. It's a hilly old route today, nothing too steep, but long and draggy on the legs. And we're at 16 miles now on Highway 150. This is a 4th category climb, which is the shallowest of the King of the Mountains competitions. First 4 riders get the points, and this man has gone clear on his own. Jurgen van der Volde started the day, Paul, in 3rd place in the King of the Mountains competition.
And high up in the overall classification too. He's trying to get himself some points because he's only got 2 days left to try and win the overall classification. Maximum points for him. 4 points for a 4th categorized climb here at the top of the climb, and the rest of the field just not too far off his heels.
Moose and Jeff Lauder going over just behind him there, and so he'll just nudge up into 2nd place overall. Well, tomorrow, don't forget, is the final day of the Amgen Tour. What a race it's been, and I hope you've been enjoying the coverage on Versus. Tomorrow we'll be live again at 5 Eastern time, that's 2 p.m. on the Pacific side, and we'll be following the riders through to the big finish in Pasadena. The end of a near 700-mile journey all comes together tomorrow right here on Versus. Don't miss it. Well, we continue on now, 3 miles further down the road, the 2nd climb of the day, taking us up to 1,100 feet, and a small breakaway off the front, just a couple of riders, Christophe Lemervel of France taking it for the Crédit Agricole team, Stephen Kotzer going over in 2nd place there.
Well, the first 30 miles of racing here, I have to say, are very difficult, or should say really, Bob, good racing roads, because it's up and down all of the time. You can see Team Astana all over the front end of the main field. Now, the reason for that is because they're controlling the front end of the peloton. They're actually listening to your keys of the race today, and they're letting guys go away who are a long way down in the overall standings, who are no threat, of course, to Levi Leipheimer.
Here's our 2 leaders, Stephen Kaza covering the breakaway. Christophe Lemervel saw Vladimir Gusev on the front of the field for the Astana team, and that's a man that can pull his brains out throughout the day and do the job for the team.
Very noticeable, though, Bob. We talked about it when we opened the program. The Slipstream Chipotle side are in every move today, and they've got a little plan up their sleeves, I think. Kotzer rides for that team.
Nice move here. This is Scott Neidham, and he's wearing the leader's jersey in the King of the Mountains classification, getting himself a few more points. He really does have to battle to take this title all the way to Pasadena tomorrow, and by doing that, he has to try and get himself a few points every time the race goes over one of the categorized climbs.
Well, he's done that so far. He's in the colors here, the Californian Tourism King of the Mountains. 2 hills behind us, and there's still another couple ahead of us, but he's increased his lead very slightly at the front of the classification. Now back up to the head of the field here. These are the 2 riders who went over Highway 150, the second climb together. A little bit of company on the way now. It looks like we've got 6 leaders here now. Karsten Kroon has just joined. The rider in yellow is David Cañada, Sonia Duval. Alexander Pichot has come up in the blue jersey for Bouygues Telecom. He's right on the front, and also Rory Sutherland. So this is the formation. This might be a good move because the best placed rider in this breakaway is Cañada, and he's more than 10 minutes behind.
10 minutes and 8 seconds to be exact. So yes, this could be the formation of a breakaway, which is not dangerous at all for the men trying to win this bike race overall.
So a new break forming. The riders might be glad of a little respite because they've been flat out since the start. By the way, over 8 riders have abandoned today. We'll take a break. Well, it's been very good attacking racing today on the Tour of California, but it looks like the combination of these 6 riders is right now. They've built a lead of just on 3 minutes as we head into the town of Ojai. 31 miles in. There's a sprint here.
Well, there is a sprint here. Look at the names. David Cañada is the best placed rider in this leading group. Karsten Kroon, that's Le Mevel of France. Pichot of France. Kodza, Steve Kodza from the team Slipstream, and Rory Sutherland, the Australian, wearing number 122. They've got themselves now a gap of more than 4.5 minutes over the front end of the main field, and I have a feeling that this is going to be the breakaway that will stay out for an awful long time, Bob.
This is a very ideal situation for the Astana team of race leader Levi Leipheimer. None of these men too close on the overall. That man in the yellow jersey is the closest, but he's 10 minutes behind Levi Leipheimer. They're only 4.5 minutes on the road, so Levi's still holding a 6-minute cushion to any men in this group. David Cañada, quite a special athlete when he was younger, best young rider in the Tour de France, but you have to go way back 13 years ago. In the meantime, he hasn't had the great results that were expected of him, but maybe today he can reverse that, get a stage win. He was 3rd last year in the Tour of Georgia here in North America.
She likes riding on American roads, and the rider, number 122, Rory Sutherland, just coming off the Australian Championships. Very disappointed he was beaten in the time trial into 2nd place by Adam Hansen. Hansen already abandoned this tour. Well, they're in what is a sprint here, but the time bonus is on offer of 3, 2 and 1 second. Well, it doesn't make any difference to these boys now because the best placed rider in this breakaway is the rider in yellow, David Cañada, and he is 10 minutes and 8 seconds behind. And I think that's the secret of the success of the move now, because there's nobody immediately threatening the overall situation.
No, it would have been a completely different story if it had been a rider like Dave Zabriskie or even David Miller who'd managed to slip into this move. They wouldn't have given it the freedom that it's having today. And that's why, just going back to what Bob said very early on, it really is a question of dosing your effort and making sure that you chase down only the riders who are important, who are challengers to you in the overall race. And that's why I think Team Astana today have given this breakaway a fair amount of freedom. They're going to see if the teams of the sprinters will come forward towards the end, and they will then do the chasing.
Well, once we get through the town of Ojai here, we're heading out into the 3rd category climb on Highway 150. We follow Highway 150 for about 45-50 miles today before we swing away and head over towards Highway 5 for the approach into Santa Clarita. This was a hard-working breakaway, a difficult one to predict today by the riders. There was a lot of attacks. Slipstream Chipotle did try to break up the field as we expected. It didn't work for them, but even so. And during all this action, by the way, we had a small tumble at the back of the race, which unfortunately for the Jelly Belly cycling team, they lost Bernard van Ulden, who went to hospital. We don't know what his condition is, but we think basically okay. And Bryce Mead, a teammate, also went out at that point. So still the riders are giving up, Paul. I think we've lost about 8 so far today.
This is an indication just how tough the race has been. Still riders trying to recover from that very difficult day just a couple of days ago on the way down to San Luis Obispo, where the riders spent 7 hours in the saddle in very cold and damp conditions.
Well, there's the main field, and it could be a field of professional cyclists anywhere in the world right now, because when you have the leader on your team, it's the responsibility of the team to do the pacemaking and try and keep this race together, and that's what's happening. All of the members of the Astana team, by the way, only 4 teams are still complete in this event, and Astana is one of them, and that shows great strength in depth. But now they're on patrol. They've got to try and control the 6 men up front. We'll take a break. Welcome back to the road to California. A long ride today of 105 miles down to Santa Clarita. The breakaway has gone, at least for the moment. And we've just received a time check from the race of 5.5 minutes now. And so with nobody yet dangerous in that breakaway, Levi Leipheimer there taking on food. Wise man. He's not going to worry too much.
Tucked away in the comfort of the main field, and he's actually got himself pretty much covered over. He wasn't wearing his yellow jersey on top. He's got his American National Champions jersey on top of the yellow jersey this afternoon, because it is still pretty cold out there on the roads of the Amgen Tour of California. The Team Astana have to do all of the pacemaking on the front end of the main field, and they've just got to dose their effort and make sure that that gap on the leading group of 6 riders doesn't get above the 10-minute mark, because if it does, the man there in the yellow jersey wearing number 13 will become the new leader of this race. There you can see the result from the sprint, the first sprint of the day. Cañada going across the line there ahead of Rory Sutherland and Steve Cosa. Not really important, I don't think, Phil, because none of these riders are looking for a few seconds. They're all looking for quite a few minutes.
That's right. Cañada starting the day 10 minutes and 8 seconds behind. He's got a 3-second bonus there, so he's now 10 minutes and 5 seconds behind. There's the rolling road, Bob, and we're getting toward the end of the steep climbs of the day.
Another King of the Mountain sprint coming up. That these riders in the break will contend for that, but it is only a Cat 3, so not a lot of points up for grabs. And the categories vary from 4 all the way up to HC, HC being the most difficult. We saw that way back in the San Jose stage over Mount Hamilton, and what a battle that provided us for. Today, pretty good situation if you're Team Astana. You have a group of riders that are a long ways down on time to the leader of the race, Levi Leipheimer, and they will just go through these sprints and King of the Mountains along the race course. They do have a chance to stay away and contest the stage win at this point, though, but the gap just over 5 minutes. Who knows? It might get bigger. It might come back depending on the chase from behind.
There's the listing for you, the riders in the break, and the big numbers on the left. So 13, Cañada is right there, sat at the back now. It's good to see the Spanish boys having a dig. They did it on the mountainous roads the other day, and they're having another little go here. Because if you can't win the race overall, of course, you can win the daily stages. Now, a lot of prestige goes with those daily stage wins. We're following Highway 150, and as always, the crowd is following the Amgen Tour of California as they're watching the pace being set by Stephen Kotzer of Slipstream Chipotle, presented by H03.
H30.
Oh, sorry, H30, quite right.
Heavy water, don't worry about it. Anyway, these guys are looking to keep, actually, I don't think they'll try and to sprint at the top of this climb. They'll try and keep together to build themselves as big an advantage as possible through this hilly section, because they know once they've got through the hilly section of the race, it's a long undulating climb up towards Santa Clarita. And for them, I think, Bob, the most important thing really is to make sure they can build in the first part of this course.
Beautiful valley roads. Ojai was the last town made famous in cycling circles by the Discovery team, having their annual camps and sponsor lodge there. Ojai, great place to ride bikes if you ever get the hankering to come out to California.
Well, don't forget, once we get down to the finish in Santa Clarita, we're only just over half an hour away from Los Angeles. This is a hotbed, a great cycling country here. There's big atmosphere today. A lot of these riders are cyclists who are watching. They've pedaled out this morning. They must have made an early start to get onto the road, just over the top. Christophe Lemervel, well, he kind of made an effort to be first over, but it wasn't exactly a sprint. Rory Sutherland in second place as they went over the top of the climb there. Because again, the Californian Tourism King of the Mountains competition is not really being affected by this breakaway. It's the best thing that could have happened for Scott Neidham. He did chase for a long time to try and join this leading group, but he couldn't catch up. He's back in the big field, but these boys scoring points today haven't scored points until today. So he'll keep his lead by the end of it.
And that's the important thing about trying to win these kind of competitions within the competition. You've got to be very careful when you go out and make the effort. And I have to say, Team BMC were phenomenal over the first few days of racing here at the Amgen Tour of California, Bob. They always had a man in the breakaway.
Absolutely, and I think Andy Rees, who has a hand in that Team BMC, He's got himself a very good home-based American squad there, and I think we'll be seeing the race in Europe as well. So they're reading the race well, and they'll get on. They're doing what we call bit and bit, or through and off. All of these riders on rival teams, but their main enemy, the peloton, they're trying to hold at bay by helping each other stay out front. But there's still an awful long way to go. We're at mile 35. See you in a moment. Welcome back to the Tour of California. Well, 43 miles in now as the riders are coming along in the main field here. The horse looking a little bit disinterested as the breakaway has now opened a gap, Bob, of 6.5 minutes. Now it's time for the domestiques, as we call them, to start feeding the boys.
Well, procuring resources and distributing them to the riders in the front. Vyacheslav Ekimov, the team director and driving the car, has done that many times for Lance Armstrong when Lance won his 7 Tours de France. Eki a part of a few of those efforts. And here's Chris Horner. He's the second place rider on the Astana team in the overall classification. He's gone back to the team car to get enough bottles for all of his teammates that are doing the work at the front of the bike race. He'll go through the line and give those out when he gets a chance. That's a highly advanced skill that Horner has. He can go through the team cars, back through the whole peloton, back up to his teammates right at the front of the race and hand out the bottles. That's the way to get it done on a professional road racing team today.
Very important they keep those fluid levels up, especially on a day like today. It's pretty chilly out there, but hopefully the rain will stay away all day. We're into Santa Paula here now, 48 miles in. There's the breakaway names for you. Canada is the boy in yellow. Gruen is the rider here on Team CSC. But whether they sprint, no, I don't think they did. I think I'll give that one to Rory Sutherland. And I think the French rider, the Pichot, had a little joke at him because there's no reason to contest these sprints, have they?
Well, not really. Over the first few days of the Amgen Tour of California, it's very important because there are time bonuses available for the sprinters, and they were trying to get themselves into the overall lead. But these guys are an awful long way down in the overall classification. So for them, the most important thing is to try and consolidate on their advantage. The highest placed rider is the rider in the yellow jersey there of Team Saunier Duval. He's in 26th place at the start of the day, but more than 10 minutes behind Levi Leipheimer on that cumulative time that we've been talking about since the start of the event.
And at the moment, he has recovered 6.5 of those minutes, which means that shortly he is going to cause something of a concern to the Astana team. And then I think we will see them start to try and chase them down. They won't want to see him at the race leader virtual on the road. So those are the 6 riders out front. There's the peloton. Now for you NHL fans, don't forget the race for the Stanley Cup playoffs is on. The top goal getter in the NHL is loaded up for the stretch run. Alex Ovechkin and the Caps hit the ice 2 weeks in a row. Check in to see the best players in the game show their stuff. And of course, it's right here on Versus. 7 Eastern, the Bruins versus the Capitals. Just looking at the back here at the moment, Victor Pena, the most famous member, apart from probably Mario Cipollini, on the Rock Racing team, the Colombian former leader of the Tour de France, when in fact he was on Lance Armstrong's team.
He did a fairly consistent individual time trial yesterday. He's in 12th place in the overall classification. But we have heard a lot of chatter on race radio about Mario Cipollini. And Bob, you've got to admit that at almost 41 years of age, making a comeback into the sport after 3 years out, it's pretty impressive the way that Mario Cipollini is actually riding in this race.
Cipollini has been very impressive in the Amgen Tour of California. It's been a few days since we had a stage custom tailored to his talents. And the last one we had into San Luis Obispo was taken out by the breakaway. That very rarely happens. The sprinters team getting it wrong. I think the conditions, as miserable as they were, contributed to that. Mario Cipollini might have a chance when we get down to the finish line in the circus there. But look at the graphic. You can see the green line is another sprint coming up, and that's where the riders are. And the peloton, over 6 minutes behind, or about 2.5 miles.
Well, there's no reaction from them yet, but once these hills are over today, we have a long descent away from them. And then we race on the main highway down towards Santa Clarita. So I think the chase back will be vicious when it does start. Now, thank you for your support so far. And I'm talking about break away from cancer here on the Amgen Tour of California. It's $2 per entry, unlimited entries. Text the word donate to 222-377 and help make a difference here. You also automatically will be entered to win daily prizes and a chance to win a 2009 Amgen Tour of California VIP getaway trip. Back with the peloton here. Still no angry mood in the big bunch just yet. Despite that, the early hours saw a number of riders abandon today, but the race goes on and we're bound for Santa Clarita. The gap is 6.5 minutes. Hello, Mario. See you in a moment. And these are the leaders now on today's stage of the Amgen Tour of California. A big American flag there welcoming the riders. There are a couple of kilometers yet to climb at the Balcom Canyon. It's only rated as a 4th category, which I think is a misnomer personally, Paul, because this is a toughie.
This is a very difficult climb. You can see the riders all out of the saddle, actually fighting with their handlebars, and we've got quite a few supporters out this afternoon, Bob.
It looks like the Grim Reaper is running along with the Pope, so plenty of blessings for the riders on this climb. But you're right, Phil, this is a very tough climb. It should not be a Category 4, maybe a Category 2 with a lot of points up for grabs. It's long and steep, and at the top, it really kicks up.
That's right, the higher the number, the steeper the grade, and this is the lowest at Category 4. We don't go any lower than that. And here they are, out of the saddle and struggling. Now, the time gap is still 7 minutes as we take the riders up here to just over 1,000 feet.
Well, I think, Phil, by the time we get to the top of this climb, it's going to be a little bit different to the 7-minute margin, because I'm sure in the main field they're going to try and attack this climb very rapidly indeed, because these guys know that this is probably the most difficult part of the course here this afternoon, and they may well dislodge 1 or 2 of the sprinters. But this is a phenomenal crowd have turned out to see the summit of this climb, and that's, I think, why this has become such a place where everybody wants to come to on the Amgen Tour of California, and the crowds really are getting into this event.
Yeah, it's massive, and they're shouting. The riders don't always like this, by the way. They're shouting down their ears. They're trying to concentrate here. Now, let me remind you, in the front here, there's nobody affecting at the moment the overall situation in the race. There's the highest ranked rider, David Cañada. He's the rider far right in yellow. He's 10 minutes behind Levi Leipheimer. The gap currently is 7 minutes, so that makes him just 3 minutes behind. And that's why I think we've seen the breakaway reach its maximum gains now.
I have a feeling that Team Astana have been playing a very clever game. They've allowed this breakaway to go clear. They've pegged it at around about the 6 minutes 30 to 7 minute margin, because they know that once they go over the summit of this climb, other teams will then start to organize the chase. And I'm sure one of those teams, as Bob has said a number of times, is going to be Team Quickstep.
Here is the teammates of Levi Leipheimer, our current race leader, and that is Chechu Rubiera on the front of the group. What a great squad that Astana has brought. Yanni Brockovich, Vladimir Gusev, Chris Horner, of course, and Jose Luis Chechu Rubiera, Sergei Ivanov doing lots of tempo. They have got some work to do still.
Ooh.
So here's a little bit of an attack here over the top.
Yes,
Karsten Kroon in trouble there. I'm surprised to see that.
A little bit surprised myself, because he was the king of the mountains in the Tour of Italy, and he's dropped off the back here as they've raced up towards the summit. He's just going to take it easy, Bob. Over the summit, it's 50 miles to go now to the finishing line. And when we get down into Santa Clarita, we have 3 circuits of 3.5 miles. So just 10 miles of racing within the city limits down there at the finishing line. We expected a little bit of flourish at the top, but the hills are now behind after this. They'll pick the tempo up. It'll be interesting to see if the tempo riding of the Astana team will split up this big bunch. So as we look now at the leaders here, we'll look back into the peloton and we'll find Dominic Roland here, the rider who won so well in the rain in San Luis Obispo. What a ride that was. He rides for Toyota United. It's an American team, and here's more. Toyota United are one of the new American teams on the block. In just 2 seasons, they have had over 100 wins. And in 2008, they're looking for even more. Great team chemistry is a key component to Toyota United's success.
I have been in some teams where there's been a lot of great riders, but it hasn't meshed because there's a lot of egos involved. There's nothing like that on the team. There are some guys that think they're pretty good, but they actually aren't.
It's amazing that we can find so many talented people, because so many of these guys are the top of their specialties, and we can get everybody to mould it in such a selfless manner, and so that they're not thinking for themselves, they're thinking for the team. I think that's one of the biggest reasons why Toyota United has been so successful in the last 2 years.
Toyota United is the brainchild of Sean Tucker, a former professional rider and the team's owner.
I had sort of seen how teams were run and, as a rider and as I was in the professional ranks, and I just sort of felt like I could do it better.
His expectations are they're off the chart. So it's just the kind of thing that you want. You want somebody who expects you to do your best, who wants the best guys. And up and down the line, everybody adheres to that philosophy.
And having him there, he understands what happened. If we don't win the race and we explain to him what happened, he will understand. It's hard to find the guys like that. So for us, it's great. Yeah.
In 2008, what we tried to do was just kind of fill in some of the gaps that we felt were lacking from 06 and 07. I think we've really done a pretty good job of kind of filling in the gaps, so to speak.
It's exciting to be part of a US scene that's growing rapidly.
Well, there's nobody from Toyota United in the breakaway yet, but what's the chances? Don't bet against Dominic Roland taking out this stage, because the chase has started now, I think. They've used the last climb of the canyon here as the sort of point to start the reaction, and I think we'll see a reverse now. 7 minutes 10 is the maximum lead this group has had. We've just heard a time check of 7 minutes, so they might be starting the reaction. But for the moment, we've got 6 riders clear, and they don't want to be caught today until they're in the showers at the finish in Santa Clarita. So the race goes on. We are 50 miles from the finish. We'll see you back with us in just a moment. And we're back, and we're still on the climb here of the Balcom Canyon, but this is the peloton now. And a little bit of the rhythm being disturbed by the steepness of this climb. There's a huge crowd, by the way, on this climb. Can't see it from this shot, but they're there. Levi Leipheimer has no fears of mountains, just like he has no fears of the individual time trial. It looks pretty cool.
Well, I think the important thing as well here is to note that he's riding at the front end of the main field. He's keeping a very close watch on everybody. David Miller in the white jersey just behind him is in second place in the overall classification. And by the way, the 2008 Amgen Tour of California, so far, more than 1 million people have watched this race going through to the end of yesterday's stage. That's phenomenal.
We're on course to have record figures, and we set a record last year, so it looks as though the popularity of this event continues to grow. And even though the weather has really been down a notch on the past 2 years. So Leipheimer out there, and at the moment he's got a cover over his yellow jersey because of the cold, and we're getting spots of rain forming now as well. 1,600 feet is the high spot of the route today. We're slightly below that now, but there's without doubt this is the steepest part of the day. They're keeping control of the bunch, Astana. They are deciding how fast this bunch is going just now, but they're doing enough to keep those 6 riders at 7 minutes exactly.
Well, Bob, there's your mate, Superfan.
Big hair super
He
fan.
got wounded then.
Taken out by the other spectators. A lot of energy for the riders at the top of this climb. Everybody coming out. They know when the riders will be going slow enough that they could get a look at some of their favorites. And Vladimir Gusev taking the peloton over the top, a long ways behind our breakaway, but it shouldn't be too dangerous for the Astana squad to keep the riders honest in the break and close that gap down when they need to towards the finish line.
Well, as we said early on in the race, the important thing about trying to win a bike race like this is it's an individual who can win the event, but you have to have a strong, solid team around you. And Team Astana today are actually rising to the occasion. Back with the leading group of riders now, Phil, 6 riders. Their advantage at the bottom of the climb was 7 minutes, and I think next time we get a time check crackling through, I think it may well have just tipped and started on the decline.
One would expect that. We are really now just inside 2 hours of racing left to the finish in Santa Clarita, and they've got themselves a 7-minute advantage, these 6 riders. None of them, if they stay at this distance, will affect the overall lead tonight, and the riders back in the bunch will be conscious of that, which means it'll be a big showdown tomorrow on what is quite a hilly route down to the big finish in Pasadena. Well, we're watching the biggest race of the year in America, but very shortly the racing season will open in Europe. And with us on Cyclism Sundays here on Versus, we will bring you Paris-Nice, presented by Hampton Hotels, and that will be on March the 9th. The race to the sun, they call it, because normally in Paris it's pretty bad weather before they start their journey south to the Mediterranean coast. That's Paris-Nice, the race to the sun, presented by Hampton Hotels, with us on March the 9th on Cyclism Sundays. The cycling season 2008 very definitely on. 6 men all still working together on that climb. Nobody was unhitched. They all came over as a nice group of 6, so they're all feeling pretty strong for what is now a long dive off the mountain as we head down to Santa Clarita. We'll see you again in just a moment. Welcome back. The view down to the helicopter of the leaders here, and they're still all together, 6 of them down there, but the gap is now beginning to come down, and it's no longer Astana on the front of the bunch, Paul. It's Team High Road and Rabobank from Holland who are driving.
Well, I think that's tactically why that is a very good move by Team Astana. In the first part of the race, what they did, they went to the front end of the main field. They set a tempo to stop this group of 6 riders getting a massive advantage, because they knew once we got over the big mountains, then the teams of the sprinters would move to the front. But it's interesting, I think, Bob, to note that it's not just Team Quickstep, but it's Team Rabobank as well, who are helping Astana at the front end of the main field. Maybe your tip for the day, Oscar Freire is looking for the win.
Well, Rabobank's gone to the front, and Team High Road contributing as well. But this is a great move for Astana. They kept the gap close enough, just around 7 minutes at the most. Vladimir Gusev still on the front doing a little bit of work, but you can see that his teammates have been able to rotate back, and other teams have come forward. They have a vested interest in catching this breakaway. Both of those teams having very fast sprinters in Oscar Freire, Mark Cavendish, and Gerard Schiolek for the High Road team. But it was Astana keeping the gap close enough so the final 50 miles of the bike race, the sprinters teams will come through and contribute to the chase, and that gives Astana a little bit of a rest. Tomorrow, another tough stage, so they want to do exactly the amount of work required to keep the gap close, but not overextend themselves.
Well, just looking at this breakaway, it's a very experienced breakaway. 3 riders, David Cañada, Carsten Kroon, and Christophe Lemervel, a Spaniard, a Dutchman, and a Frenchman. Between them in the Tour de France on 10 occasions, so there's plenty of experience up here, and they're trying to keep it all away. The highest placed rider in this front group this morning was David Cañada in the yellow, 10 minutes behind Levi Leipheimer. At one stage he'd recovered over 7 minutes of that loss, but now it's reversing again. It's coming inside 5.5 minutes just now. Absolutely stunning scenery here, Paul, as we drop off the hills for a while.
Precarious descent off the summit of these mountains, and the riders who are looking to win this race overall will try and ride in the first 15 or 20 places. That's where it's the safest. You've got a chance to see riders going around the corner in front of you, and you don't normally have to change your line going into a corner, and that's where you can find the little dangerous things happening and crashes starting to form. There you can see that leading group of 6 riders, but they managed to get themselves off the front end in the early part of this race, and you can see they're all sharing the pace at the front of this group.
Well, this is moments ago, actually. This is Steven Kotzer here of Slipstream Chipotle. He's just trying to stretch that old lumbar region out there. Maybe a bit of cramp creeping in. It's always a worry now at this stage of the race. Remember, they've been riding long distances now for a week, and so they're entitled to feel a little bit stiff. But the great thing about being a stage race cyclist, Bob, a multi-day rider, and the secret is the powers of recovery.
You have to have endurance and be able to recover one day to the next, especially when you get into the longer stage races like the Tour of California and, of course, the Tour de France. That's when the recuperation powers come into play, and you never can tell how the legs are going to react one day to the next. One day you can be in absolute misery and in being tormented with every pedal stroke. The next day you can find the breakaway and feel a lot better. And so you can never lose faith. You always got to have a whole lot of hope to get through these bike races, and a bunch of endurance as well.
Another thing you have to bear in mind on a long stage like this, Phil, is you've got to make sure that you keep eating all of the time. You may not really feel hungry, but you've got to keep the energy levels topped up, because on a stage like this, the riders can burn between 5,000 and 7,000 calories. On the big long mountain stage we had the other day of 7 hours, they will have burned something like 8,000 calories, and you just can't ingest that at night over the dinner table, so you've got to keep eating throughout the whole of the stage.
Well, I know that Bob, Paul, and I always envy the fact that these guys only have a body fat of around 4 or 5%. I don't think anybody here in the commentary box can boast that. Anyway, we're up with the leaders here. 5:45 is the gap. David Cañada in yellow, the man with most to gain, but I'm afraid that advantage is beginning to slip and slide. But will all the sprinters get back into the action? We'll take another break as we nudge closer to Santa Clarita. And we're heading into the last 30 miles of the 105 on the road to Santa Clarita today. These are the 6 leaders. They established their lead out front at around about 18 miles in. And I must say, Bob, the chase is now on, because the gap, the last gap we got, we're almost on 4 minutes dead.
Rock Racing Cam from the helicopter bringing the pictures of our breakaway riders: David Cañada, Carsten Kroon, Christophe Lemervel, Pichot Kotze, and Rory Sutherland. They've had a long, hard day in the saddle. They're 4 minutes, 30 seconds ahead. Steven Koza having a bit of a hard time there sitting on the back. We saw him in a little bit of difficulty earlier, and this is going to be a very tough, long, hard row to hoe for these riders to stay away. Back in the peloton, we see the chase now has begun by the sprinters teams. They want to bring their men to the front of the race so they have a chance for the stage. And here you can see Astana still on front, but right behind Rabobank for Oscar Freire is queued up, and the high road people also at the front of the peloton.
Well, that's the leaders at the front, and in fact the Astana riders now pulled off Gusev to make way for the Rabobank riders to do their share. Right at the back of the peloton here is the race leader, Levi Leipheimer. His leader's yellow jersey covered up for the moment, and he's dropped back to his team manager here, who is Vladislav Ekimov, who used to race on the same team with Levi, now in the car. Age catches up with anyone, I guess, Paul.
You may notice as well, he's got a teammate alongside him, number 8 there, that's Chechu Rubiera. The fact that he's dropped to the back of the convoy to talk to his team manager doesn't mean the team are going to stop looking after him. He will always have a teammate close by him, just in case he has a mechanical incident when he's at the back end of the race.
Well, I think they're talking the tactics of the day there now, and they'll be happy the other sprinters have put teams up here. There we are. It certainly isn't flat on our run into Santa Clarita, not quite as violent as the profile does give us, but we do climb up to around about 1,450 feet before we start those 3 circuits once we get down into the town. So as the race goes on out in the country, there is down in the town there some interesting action for the crowd to watch, because the breakaway from cancer here and the breakaway mile is part of Amgen's sponsorship to help raise awareness of its Breakaway from Cancer initiative. So let's have a look at that.
The Breakaway for Cancer is an incredible initiative to increase awareness around all the support systems it takes for patients to really fight hard and win against this terrible disease. And it's a really exciting event because in the 25 or 30 years I've been a physician, I've never seen more openness and awareness about everything that it takes to really fight against this serious illness.
And the words there of Dr. Joe Miletic, the Senior Vice President, Research and Development with Amgen, and everybody here, the family, friends, and the cancer survivors, as well as the doctors and medical team, doing a great job. And don't forget, you can play your part as well. Text the word donate to 222377. Make a big difference here, and thanks for all of the effort you're making so far this week. It's $2 an entry, but you also get a chance to be entered in to win a daily prize, and all entrants will receive discounts valid at the Tour of California online store. Back to the leaders. There they are. They're not looking quite as orderly as they were about half an hour ago. They are tired, and they know that the chase is now on. That's the Rock Racing camera shot. The helicopter probably flying about 1,500 feet above the riders here. Now we drop onto the ground level and the motos. And this is David Cañada here sitting at the back, just keeping an eye on things. He was the man who went over the top of the Balcom Canyon climb in first place. Let's go back down to the finishing line now, meet up with our old friends, the speakers down there, Jeff Roke and David Toll.
Ladies and gentlemen, let's hear it for Versus. Come on, you can do better than that. Cyclism Sundays breaks through the starting line with the Amgen Tour of California, February 17th to 24th. A 700-mile race down the coast that's anything but a pleasure trip. The Amgen Tour of California concludes tomorrow at 5 p.m. only on Versus. The coverage has been awesome, Jeff, and we've been welcoming the Versus viewers to each city in Santa Clarita. You're going to be stoked to see how good you look on the coverage today.
We're going all around the world with this program, and right now this is the most important cycling event in the world here in February as the season ramps up.
Well done, Dave and Jeff, because those boys, they're famous right around America with their calls of cycle races. They know these riders inside out, and they could be getting our jobs any day now, I think, Paul. But there's the leaders. The gap is now 4 minutes 15 seconds.
Coming around very dramatically. You've got 3 big teams at the front chasing, Team High Road, Team Rabobank and Team Quickstep. And we all know what that's all about. They want to put these 6 riders back in the fold and have a royal sprint into the city of Santa Clarita.
Well, I know many people would love to see a sprint. They're always exciting things to see. But first of all, they've got to reel in these 6 riders. They're coming, boys. We're down to 4:15. At one time, they led this race by 7. It's not done yet. Welcome back. We're about 20 miles from the finishing line. That makes it just over 10 from Santa Clarita before the circuits. The leaders top left, the peloton driven by Team High Road at the moment, and then the blue jerseys of Quick-Step. Look at the gap, 3 minutes 10 seconds now.
Well, we saw the Grim Reaper, Bob, out on the course a little bit earlier on. I think that may be an indication that these 6 riders are more than likely going to get caught before the end, because the sprinters can smell the victory here on today's stage into Santa Clarita. Once again, looking down from the Rock Racing cam, high in the sky, we can see the 6 leaders, and every now and again they're starting to just lose their impetus and their organization, and that will give the advantage to the men in the main field. Finally, a little glimpse there of the yellow shirt, or the yellow sleeve I should say, on Levi Leipheimer, the man who leads this race. 21.25 hours in the saddle. He'd be counting down the miles now and keeping a very close eye on David Miller, who's just behind him in the standings.
Well, that's since he left Palo Alto 7 days ago. Bob, a little glimpse of sunshine. Are they going to catch the breakaway?
I believe they most definitely will. The sprinters team stinging from the rain onto the stage into San Luis Obispo. They missed out a big chance to win the stage there. They do not want to let that go again today. So the team directors, all the managers will be saying, okay, guys, get to the front, hoss it up. We got to catch these 6 men out in the front. We got a good chance to do it. They only have a gap of about 3 minutes, but you see 3 teams on the front, all of them with strong sprinters. We haven't seen CSC come to the front. They have a man in the breakaway, Carson Kroon. That wouldn't look right.
Well, we're looking at the breakaway names here that have done all of the work, all of the day, but one man at the back in the chase who's been doing a lot of work, Vladimir Gusev, we are hearing has now been involved in a crash with Rubens Battagliati. And Battagliati has come back up to the race, but the ambulance has been called, and we understand that Vladimir Gusev is out of the race, and that could be a big blow tomorrow for Levi Leipheimer.
Well, he's a real solid rider, Vladimir Gusev. We've seen him riding on the front over the last few days, and he's the man who's been controlling the front end of the main field. And I think, Bob, losing an ally like Vladimir Gusev just shows a little bit of a crack in the armor of Team Astana leading into the final few kilometers of this stage, but of course tomorrow's very difficult stage as well.
One momentary lapse in the attention you're paying to the wheel in front of you, and you can go down and break something just as quickly as that. Here's the profile just a few miles before the finish line. The circuits, you can see, are very similar at the very end of the stage. The riders have covered all the gray screen and are into the black now. And if you're in the breakaway, you're probably going deep into the reserves at this point.
I reckon so. These are the riders of Team High Road. Only 3 teams in the race have all of the riders who started in Palo Alto still there. Team CSC, strong sprinters there today, if that's the way it happens. Rabobank also with sprinters, and Rock Racing, the only 3 teams left complete with their starters in Palo Alto. That's quite a bit of attrition over the week, and today we've lost 9 riders.
Well, I think it's impressive to see that Rock Racing have still got all the full complement of riders that they started with. And of course, for me, the big star is Mario Cipollini. Now, if this all comes back together towards the end, Bob, this is the sort of finish that Mario Cipollini in days of old would have really enjoyed. It's a nice long final straight up to the finish line. But I tell you what, there's some other great sprinters as well. Tom Bonan, for example, is a man who'll be stinging to try and get the win. And let's not forget that Paolo Bettini, the current world champion on the same team as Tom Bonan, finished 3rd on this stage last year.
Well, we're charging down highway number 5 here, heading for Santa Clarita. It's not quite as quick as it was a year ago. The average speed a year ago, 26.8 miles an hour. Today, 24.2 miles an hour. But we've still got to get down to those circuits. It's not an easy circuit down in the city, and that average speed will go up. They'll probably finish around about 25.2 today.
Yeah, they will push it up over the last half an hour of racing or so, but I tell you what, it's a very testing circuit around town here. 3.5 miles that the riders have to cover on 3 occasions. And Bob, there's quite a nasty little climb on that. A good idea and a good point for somebody to try and launch a solo attack.
I think we'll see some attacks on the circuits if this breakaway is caught. If they are caught before the circuits, they can most certainly count on a few breakaway attempts before the finale. But the lead out so fast from the teams of the sprinters and the momentum of the peloton generally has enough power to overtake all the breakaways.
Well, we've now entered Los Angeles County here as we now race south, the general direction towards Pasadena. We'll finally get there tomorrow. The highest ranked man in the breakaway is the rider in yellow, David Cañada, sitting 26th in this race, 10 minutes behind Levi Leipheimer overall. But that's coming back. He's only got 7 minutes still in hand here. So the gap is just over 3 minutes between the bunch and the breakaway. And these riders here are beginning to make it look like it might well be a bunch sprint. Just 30 miles an hour. That's a very quick speed. That's the situation this morning. Leipheimer leading the race from David Miller, 49 seconds. Miller has been alongside Leipheimer all day to watch him. Christian van der Velde, a big danger to Leipheimer, is third, 1 minute and 8 seconds. But all of these riders all together in the big field. And if they finish that way, they all receive the same time. So there would be no change in that. All right, well, while we watch the riders here every day, and particularly tomorrow in Pasadena, we have the Health Net Lifestyle Festival. And it really means it's not just about cycling. We are demonstrating everything here, the healthy lifestyle as well. The fun and games of the show. We have Autograph Alley, we have all the fun and games, all the clothing you can buy here from the Amgen Festival. You can go and try your own skill and beat the riders on the computer there. Oh, good shot, well done. I hope you get a good prize for that. And everything is for everybody to enjoy. Oh, and there's Goo the dog. He goes everywhere by bike, by the way. Back to the action. That's all happening, of course, while the riders race in. That's our Health Net Lifestyle Festival as they go back out to the action. And tomorrow it'll be in full swing in Pasadena when the race rolls into town and finally rolls to a stop at around about 666 miles ridden. These are the riders up front. The sprinters are licking their lips at 2:55. Surely they will get caught. And if they do, this is what we can expect. The battle of the greyhounds. JJ Haido, he's won down here before. Can he win there again? But there are other big sprinters here. Tom Bonan's here. Cipollini's here. It's all good. We'll be back in a moment. Well, they are still clear. They're under pressure, yes, and the field is chasing in on them, but they're still away. And we are in the streets of Santa Clarita at the moment. Last time check we got was about 2.5 minutes, but we haven't had one for a few minutes. But these 6 riders now, they just got a long run down the Bean Parkway, and then they will race in towards the finishing line itself. Once through the finishing line, they are going to go 3 times around the town on a 3.5 mile circuit. It's not a flat circuit, and I'm afraid it will probably mean the end of these guys at some point.
The problem is we're going through that phase in the race when it's will they, won't they, will they survive. I have a feeling once we do get to that finishing circuit, the men of the sprint in the main field behind are going to get very excited. There's Levi Leipheimer. Finally, he's taken his jersey off, and to me, Bob, that's always an indication that the pace is starting to hot up.
The pace is starting to warm up, just like the weather. There's Chris Horner. He was in the breaks earlier in the day, but he's been protecting Levi Leipheimer throughout the day. Here's our breakaway riders, and a very long day in the saddle for the men in the front, and they may not have any prizes to crow about at the end of the day. But that's a part of bike racing. When the sprinters teams want the finish, when they want their riders to contest the sprint to the line, it's very tough to stay away.
Well, this again, our great view from the Rock Racing camera here as we look down on the 6 leaders. Just remind ourselves where we are today. We're heading down from Santa Barbara right into Santa Clarita, 105 miles. The miles are almost done. We're now heading into Santa Clarita where we will start the first of 3 circuits here. And as always, these boys are going to get a big cheer. But the sun has come out on cue and temperatures have warmed up.
Well, I have to say, Bob, just looking at the body language of these riders, you can actually see the urgency, the difference in their pedaling style to the pedaling style they had maybe just 10 miles ago. They're now realizing that they've got to try and get themselves around this circuit. Almost 4 hours in the saddle, and look at this crowd welcoming them home.
Yes, and of those 4 hours, these 6 have been away for 3.25 hours in the front, being chased by the field. Team High Road are now driving on for their sprinters. They've got 2 in Mark Cavendish, the UK rider, and Gerald Chorek. What is happening now is all the teams of the sprinters are putting riders on the front of that peloton to try and chase down these 6 men.
Well, these riders now are just about to see the finish line, but unfortunately for them, when they cross the finish line, they're going to have to go on 3 circuits of the city times 3.5 miles, and that's around about 11.5 miles of racing. Unfortunately for them, it is not flat at all. I think behind, though, Bob, the interesting thing is we've got an awful lot of big sprinters now trying to get themselves to the front. There are so many sprinters in this race, and these are the 6 men that they want to catch if they're going to have their glory.
These 6 men must be caught, but there's 3 teams working on the front. Team High Road, probably for Mark Cavendish, maybe Gerard Schiolik. Quick-Step, of course, Tom Bonin, and Rabobank has Oscar Freire. So you see 3 teams cooperating together. Well, those cooperations will turn into hostilities as we get within about a kilometer of the finish line.
Well, as we look at these, the white jerseys here coming through with the blue on, they're riding for Tom Bonin, that's their sprinter. The orange jersey are riding for Oscar Freire, that's their sprinter. The white jersey are riding for Mark Cavendish, that's this team's sprinter. That's why they're combining now. These are the workhorse men. They're not dreaming of a win, but they're hoping they can deliver their sprinter to the line. But first, Paul, they've got to catch those 6 guys.
That is why they're working together in unison. They're all different teams at the moment working for one goal. What they're trying to do is get the speed as high as possible. Now, on the run in towards the finish, the breakaway will probably ride at about 24 or 25 miles an hour average speed. However, the group at the back can ride at around about 30. The reason they're doing this right now is the men and the teams are intentionally sacrificing their own chances to go to the front, ride in the wind, and keep the pace as high as 30 miles an hour, therefore wiping away 2 or 3 minutes in the last 20 minutes of racing.
And let's not forget either, Bob, there are other riders like Mario Cipollini who doesn't have this firepower of teammates. He's got to be a little bit crafty and use other men.
He has to follow the wheels. He'll have one guy to help him, and that will be Fast Freddy Rodriguez, no mean sprinter himself. And you can see the green and black jerseys of Rock Racing queuing up on the left-hand side of your screen. They need to do that to keep Mario Cipollini out of the wind. Mario mustn't make any efforts until the last 200 meters of this bike race. He has to stay in perfect position, and the team is required to keep him there.
Well, let's not forget, Team Rock Racing started this race with only 5 riders, and all 5 riders, they're still here, and you just noticed, Phil, that all 5 of them are riding at the front end of the main field. They want to create a little bit of a surprise here this afternoon.
Well, they've got a chance to do this now because a lot of sprinters are out of this race, like Heinrich Hausler out with sickness 2 days ago. Others have gone too. This could be a most interesting finish, and we must not forget that the man in the Herbalife Sprint Leaders jersey is in fact Dominic Roland, the rider who won in San Luis Obispo, and he packs a sprint finish as well. Back up to the leaders, acts of desperation now. It's if you've got the strength, then go up and do some pacemaking because there's no longer an orderly chase here.
There's no need at this point, when you look at the 6 names there of these riders with a 2-minute and 10-second advantage, of holding anything back, because you hold something back and you will get caught. You might as well give every last little bit of energy you've got, Bob, to the success of the breakaway, because this really is touch and go. You can see the pain at the back there. I think that's probably Steve Koza, who's been in difficulty for the last hour of racing, but he's still sticking it there. He's still hanging on. He realizes he doesn't want to leave the wheels.
David Koza having a very tough time staying on the wheels. Young professional, good time trialist. He does not have the experience of a rider like Karsten Kroon, who's in his mid-30s. Karsten Kroon asking him to please come through, please continue contributing to the pace, but Koza maybe not capable of doing that, and Koza just hoping to sit on the wheels, let alone go to the front and do some work into the wind.
Well, he's a Californian as well. He comes from Petaluma, and Steve Koza will try and hang on in there, but he has been the weakest of the leaders over these last 15-20 miles, yo-yoing a little bit. The face of Rory Sutherland here. He's a big, strong Australian rider from Canberra, the capital of Australia, and he's always riding on American teams when he's when their summer starts, because he comes from the Aussie summer. Big, strong boy.
Makes a longer season for many of the riders from the Antipodes, from Australia. There's number 13, unlucky for some, but not for David Cañada here this afternoon in his yellow jersey of Team Sonia Duval, because he's been in the breakaway for an awful long time. He was the best placed rider in the breakaway, but almost 10 minutes behind in the overall race behind Levi Leipheimer. These riders now are about to sample this circuit. It is a very difficult circuit. In a moment, they'll start to sweep slightly up and they'll taste this climb for the first time.
It's not a bad circuit though, Paul. It is a tough one, I agree, but when you get a circuit with these long straight roads and a gap of only, well, less than 2 minutes now, it's 1:55, the field can see the riders and that gives them impetus. But this circuit is changing direction all of the time. that might give them just a slight advantage.
That's true. It's always very difficult to keep a main field organised on a circuit like this, but I think when you've got the three big teams that we've seen on the front end of the main field chasing, they're not going to mess it up in a situation like this. And now you can see the breakaway is losing its momentum, Bob. It's losing its organisation. They're splitting up and coming back together, and that has an effect of lowering the average speed of the men in the breakaway.
Well, when the cooperation goes out of the breakaway, it's because riders sense that some might not be able to contribute as well, and then they start to launch their solo attacks. But I don't think that this breakaway has enough time, enough distance to the peloton to stay away, and I don't think it's because of any tactical maneuvering. It's just that some of the riders more tired than the others in the breakaway.
It's showing signs on the next lap. I think this breakaway is going to explode. The strong men will power on in the desperate hope they can hold the field off to the finish. Carsten Kroon, a leader of the King of the Mountains in both the Tour de France and the Giro d'Italia, the Tour of Italy. He was the rider who just passed out of our picture. Now this is Alexander Pichot of France coming through in that blue jersey, followed by Christophe Lemervel. He's another Frenchman in this breakaway. They're starting to find their legs now because, of course, the European winter means often they're a little bit behind in their fitness training.
Well, they're getting themselves organised once more. They realise they've got to work as a unit. They've got to keep themselves dedicated to going to the front and keeping the pace as high as possible, because these guys are all professional bike riders. They know what's happening behind. Even the fact is now they don't even need the team manager to tell them. They know this is the moment when they have to give everything they've got, because the main field that we're looking at right now is flying along at speeds exceeding 30 miles an hour on a consistent basis. There is Team High Road right on the front end of the main field. The blue and white jerseys there are the teammates of Tom Bonen. It's big George Hincapie on the front himself, leading this out for his man Mark Cavendish, or maybe even Gerard Cholet, because Team High Road have got two very good sprinters and nothing really to show so far for the Amgen Tour of California.
That is absolutely right. Thomas Lockvist taking through there now. Levi Leipheimer in yellow. We can spot him now, and that's why they give them a yellow jersey, so we can see who leads this tour on the open highway. That's how it originated from the early days of the Tour de France. The thing about Team High Road, these riders on the front, and Hincapie is the leader of that team, they've got two sprinters and only two riders apart from them left in the race. They've only got four men left, and so they've really at a disadvantage today.
Well, what they'll do is they're working here, I think, to pull back that leading group of 6 riders. I think the important thing is that they will try and take advantage of the lead out which will come from Team Quickstep. This is the overall standings at the start of the day this morning. Levi Leipheimer was leading by 49 seconds. It really isn't very much. I think the dangerous thing is Christian van der Velde up there in 3rd place, but the 2 CSC riders in 4th and 5th, we haven't seen anything come from them today. Maybe, Bob, they're waiting till tomorrow.
Tomorrow would be a good day to attack. Still some mountains left out on the race course, including the highest point in the Amgen Tour of California, save for the last stage of the race on tomorrow's stage. Here's our breakaway. Still time to cooperate, but that gap plummeting down now, less than 1.5 minutes. And if we can just wait a moment, we'll see the peloton come streaming through the start-finish line in a heavy pursuit of these riders that are still left in front.
Well, here we go through the finishing line again. Now we're hearing 1 minute is the gap, just 1 minute. There's been a huge chase back on this first of 3 circuits here, as the Carsten Kroon of Team CSC, one of only 3 teams now left with all of their starters still going strong. CSC have a great sprinter too in JJ Haedo. He might be looking for the win. It could be a great result for him today. There they go, and still Carsten Kroon swings off the back there, tucks up behind Stephen Kotzer, who's having a great ride today despite all, and Rory Sutherland, Team HealthNet, and the manager of Team HealthNet is saying all of his riders are sick, so we must presume that Sutherland isn't feeling that well up here.
Well, I think, as you said earlier on, though, he's a pretty tough Aussie. He's come here from the Aussie winter, the Aussie summer, I should say, so he's in pretty fine form. Now, this is George Hincapie, and I've got an unofficial time check working here, Phil, as they come up to the finish line, and it's going to be inside of the 1 minute mark, I would make it, and that means these guys have certainly got the bit between their teeth. They want to pull back those 6 riders. They've already pulled back a minute on that first circuit around town.
Well, Rabobank still driving at the front, prepared to help out Hincapie's Team High Road here, because Team High Road have Mark Cavendish and Gerald Cholik, the 2-pronged sprint result for them. And Leipheimer in yellow, you see, he's just keeping a close vigilance here, making sure he stays out of any possible way. He's not going to mix it with the sprinters. It's too dangerous, because all of the riders finish together in the same time. And this race is heading and we're hearing that there's a crash, and it's one of the Rock Racing riders who's gone down there, and it looks to me as though, I'm not sure who it is, Paul.
In fact, it looks like it's Pena who's gone down.
Is it Pena? Well, that's really sad, because Pena's high up overall, and he's losing time. He's had a bit, he must have touched the wheel there. But it's 160, it's 167, I thought.
Well,
it didn't look like Freddie Rodriguez to me. Was it Fred?
It could have been Freddie Rodriguez who went down there, and that's rather sad because he was riding right up at the front end of the main field. Now there's a little acceleration here.
It is Freddie Rodriguez. Oh, well, this is really sad because he was likely to deliver Mario Cipollini to the finish today. It's all gone wrong all of a sudden. That is a real shame for Freddie, and he's losing time now, I'm afraid. He's not too worried about that, but the big thing was he was going to lead out Cipollini.
Well, it also exaggerates the point that we were making before for Levi Leipheimer. He has to be very careful over these last 7 miles of racing. He has to stay near the front end of the main field. Yes, he doesn't want to mix it with the sprinters because those are dangerous men. They will take all kinds of risks to win an individual stage, but he has to stay at the front and keep out of that kind of danger.
Very dangerous riding in the last few miles, especially when the teams are going for a stage win. The sprinters are not sprinting for 10th place. There's not a big group ahead. They know they're going for the stage win. Things get very dicey in the closing mile of these international bike races.
Well, we're about 5 miles away from the finish now, and they are still out there. Shortly we're going to cheer them on, I hope, because this is a terrific breakaway move, but the field are closing in. 50 seconds is the gap, which is a spread right across today's stage of the Amgen Tour of California. Well, look at this. This is a look back to moments ago. Mario Cipollini was involved, and so too Mark Cavendish. I don't know what the sprinters were doing here, but they got themselves all tangled up, and they're now more or less out of the hunt here for the day.
Well, that was all at the back end of the main field, and that is rather a surprise to see so many of those guys going down together. They must have just touched wheels. It is a dangerous part of the race right now. We rejoin these leaders. Their gap is now down to 50 seconds. They'll be wondering now whether or not they've got enough to survive, but the main field is completely dedicated to pulling them back into the fold. They're on the far side of the circuit. Very shortly, they'll take a right-hand bend. It's a long, straight road back into the city of Santa Clarita and the finish line, and then they will line up for one final lap of 3.5 miles. Bob, I don't think they've got enough time.
I don't think they have enough time to stay away. Here is the team on the front high road. It will be no question who's their sprinter now. Mark Cavendish will have an almost impossible job of catching back up, and watch for Gerard Schiolek to come to the front if it does come down to the wire to the sprint. Quick Step on the front. It's getting pretty desperate right now. We'll see what horses are still left with a little bit of energy, but they can smell the barn and they're getting close to the finish line.
Well, there's no doubt about that. I think that was Bradley Wiggins there, but he looked over his shoulder and almost touched the wheel of a Quick Step rider. That's not the thing to do at these speeds, because there's confusion. The world champion off to the right, just peeping into our picture, is Paolo Bettini. He packs a sprint finish as well. Now we hear that Mario Cipollini is back in the following cars, but looking from that picture, Paul, I didn't see any following cars.
Well, the following cars are probably a little bit stuck behind all of those riders trying to get themselves back up to the main field. It's very difficult to get yourself back into the race at a moment like this. We're getting a chance now to see the distance between the two groups. There is the leading group of 6 riders. I would make that less than 30 seconds now, and these guys will look over their shoulders. They now know it's pretty much almost over.
Well, I take my helmet off to them today for that, Paul, because they've stayed away nearly to the end, and the peloton behind have been stressed by that crash that they just experienced. I think at least they'll hear the bell in the lead, but after that it's anybody's guess. But this has been a big attempt to try and stay away from the field today.
Well, it certainly has. They're not going to give up at all, though, these guys. They're 1 kilometer from starting the final lap of the day. And you can see the urgency, Bob. Look at the man at the back there in the dark blue jersey from Bouygues Telecom Pichot. He's all over his machine, bouncing around, trying to find just a little bit more energy. But they can probably now almost hear the main field behind them, who are absolutely charging into town, and they're coming through the 1 kilometer to go as well. Tom Bonen is not very far away from the front of this field. He's riding there in about 5th position. He's the slightly bigger rider in the pale blue and white jersey. Behind him is the world champion Paolo Bettini. Boonen, I think, wants the win here this afternoon.
Tom Boonen looking for the win today. His team has ridden perfectly. They're closing the gap down to our 6 breakaway leaders who have been out front for a long ways. And once the leg's gone and the power of the peloton takes over, it's impossible to stay away till the finish line unless you're a very special rider on a very special day. And the cooperation now starting to disintegrate a little bit in the front group.
Well, I'm not surprised at that. There was a split there, but now there's a counter move here. And they're just trying to make one last desperate effort to do this. And look at this now. It is Kotzer who's having a little launch for the line here now. Stephen Kotzer, he's going to hear the bell. There's still nobody in the straight. There's still a chance. As they come through, the crowd will be on their side for sure now as they drive through with the American on slipstream Chipotle leading through, being trailed by Carsten Kroon, Christophe Lemel. Oh dear me, there is the chase behind, and we are 3.5 miles from the finish. It's too far.
Well, the main field are like a bunch of vultures there just waiting to pounce. They've been waiting in the wings for this to happen. They've been waiting to see these 6 men at the front of the race. Now they've got to keep themselves organized, and it's still right on the front end of the main field, the blue and white jerseys there of Team Quickstep, and of course of the big sprinter Tom Boonen, who's already tasted victory in this year's Amgen Tour of California. And of course the important thing is that Levi Leipheimer is still in there, Bobby, still sitting to the front end of the main field, while again there's still 1 or 2 little flurries of attacks going off the front, but this I think is just delaying the agony.
The agony and the inevitable just being delayed. Here is the field, hot on the heels of the breakaway. What a great job by Tom Boonen's team of Quickstep to chase this breakdown in the closing kilometers of the bike race. The Rock Racing cam from the helicopter giving us these great images. Quickstep on the front. High Road circulated too, but we haven't seen a lot of Team CSC. Maybe they're saving their energy to do the big lead out. When Fabian Cancellara and Jens Voigt do the lead out for JJ Hayedo, he's very tough to beat in a stage like this.
Well, 3 of the boys have already decided. The white flag is up. They've fallen back. There's Christophe Lemaivel and David Cañada. They're going to try and hold them off here. Now, it's always confusing for the big pack when the catch is so late, because the sprinters are trying to plan their final move for the win, but they can't do that until they catch the leaders. So this is a difficult finish for the sprinters now.
Well, another move. This is Pichot of Bouygues Telecom straight over the top there. He wants to try and go clear if he can. This is David Miller, who's come out of the main field. Now, David Miller is in 2nd place in the overall classification. Levi Leipheimer certainly needs to chase this one down.
Levi's going to have to put his men back on the front of the field. That might confuse the sprint dramatically, but David Miller is taking a little bit of a flyer here off the front of the group.
If he gets the win today, he wins a bonus of 10 seconds plus any gap time over the field, and he's only just less than 50 seconds behind Leipheimer. They've got to react to this.
Well, this is a brilliant move, and he's been sitting, probably waiting in the wings all day. He probably planned this attack. The team will have known what the finish line is like. They'll know what the finishing circuit is like. And as Bob says, this is going to make it rather confusing for the teams of the sprinters as Miller came straight to the front.
Levi Leipheimer has got to get his act together. He's got to come back to the front and start his team to chase. Miller is riding away from field. Does he know the jersey in white, who has shadowed Leipheimer for 4 hours, has suddenly flown the coup? This is a superb move by the British champion, and he really has got great form.
This is an absolutely brilliant maneuver by David Miller. He's off the front. He's trying to get a little bit of a time gap, and exactly what we were recommending. Astana has come to the front. Levi in a desperate situation now. He does not want to concede any time at all to David Miller. What a great move by the British champion. That is a surprise, and the peloton in shock right now.
I have never seen David Miller ride as well as this. He's won stages of the Tour de France, but he is riding with such confidence now for his new team, Slipstream Chipotle. And look at this, he's joined the 2 remnants of the breakaway. He's given them a new impetus. It might succeed this. The first 3 riders to cross the line receive small time bonuses.
Well, actually, the Bouygues Telecom rider is not the rider who was in the breakaway earlier on. This is actually Thomas Vogler. So I was thinking maybe they wouldn't have a strong pair of legs. This is a completely different group of riders now who've gone clear off the front end of the main field.
Camano.
And I think it's Camano who's up there.
Camano, sorry, you're right, it's Camano, the teammate of Cañada. It's Voigtler, the teammate of Pichot. They've changed round, 3 different riders at the front and being driven on. These boys have got much fresher legs here, and this is the most serious attack to Leipheimer's overall lead we have seen. And Miller, I take my hat off to him, Paul. That is a superb move, but you need so much strength to do it.
You've got to have a lot of power. You've got to be a man like Yaroslav Ekimov, who's the team manager back in the team car of Team Astana. He knows how difficult it is for somebody to do a move like this. He did this on a stage of the Tour de France. Miller looking over his shoulder, trying to judge the distance between himself and the front end of the main field, and it's not very much, Bob. We're talking here 10 seconds possibly, but there's organisation coming back. Team Quick-Step have now taken up the reins again at the front end of the main field. They do not want a confusing sprint.
And ironically, it might be the Belgian team Quick-Step who are pulling this race back together for Levi Leipheimer's team, because they want to deliver Tom Bonan to the line to win the sprint. David Miller is going again. Camano is going after him. So too Thomas Voigtler, the man who wore the yellow jersey in the Armstrong years in the Tour de France. Well, David Miller has done everything he could possibly do today to steal this race, and that's a superb move, win or lose.
Well, he's not even thinking about trying to win the stage here this afternoon. He's looking for time. He's riding as hard as he can to try and get back some of that 49 seconds he lost on Levi Leipheimer over the first 7 days of racing here. There's the main field now. They're still waiting to pounce. As we pull back, that's always a bad sign, because that is less than 5 seconds. In the next 100 meters or so, those 3 riders will be back in the main fold, and as we speak, you can see them sitting up. They know that this move has been doomed.
Well, nonetheless, a great move, and it teams Quick-Step with Paolo Bettini, the world champion, in 3rd place here. And I think also getting up into the act now is Mario Cipollini, who's now in 4th wheel, having rejoined from the crash.
And 3 riders in the orange jerseys there. Those are the riders from Team Rabobank, and they'll be looking after them. And 3 times champion of the world, Oscar Freire. He too will be looking to try get himself a victory here. But this race is looking a little bit ragged. You know, it's been a very hard race around this circuit.
This has been typical of this year's Amgen Tour of California. Another day, another great day for the riders, and they're all coming back together for the big sprint. But there's so many riders in there capable now. We've got the world champion flexing his legs in that white jersey in about 4th position.
Well, I had a feeling that I saw Tom Bonan himself on the front end of this main field, maybe trying to lead it out
that's Tom Bonan
for his own teammate. That is Bonan on the front, and on his wheel there is Oscar Freire.
But look at the rider coming through and going now is Dominic Roland. I think that's Roland. The jersey is going for his 2nd stage win. This is going to be an incredible result for Toyota United, but no, Cholik is challenging him on his shoulder. But I think Roland has got the strength here as he digs deep. It's a long way to the line. He was forced out too soon. It's on the right and left. It's a 1-2 for Cholik and Cavendish, and it looks as though it was Cavendish who got the win. Well, where did he come from?
He came right up the inside on the far right-hand side of frame, and that was a great win. Let's not forget, Phil, 1.5 laps to go. That young man from Great Britain was on the ground. A phenomenal performance by him, and a little bit of chatting going on there, and I think Mario Cipollini was not too happy about what was going on.
Well, I don't know what's wrong with Mario Cipollini there. That was an incredible result there for Team High Road, and it all worked out well in the end for Levi Leipheimer, because they've all finished together. So Leipheimer has protected his gains of the day. But there was a moment there when it never looked like. Let's have a look again at this now. It is Cholik on the left here, and Roland went too early. He faded away with Freire. Watch far right, because this was the charge to the line. And look at that. Cavendish has got his win right on the line. Boxed in the middle is Mario Cipollini, but I really don't see what he has to complain about.
Well, he went to the ground, I think, with a lap and a half to go with Mark Cavendish, and I wonder what that discussion was all about.
Well, it's kisses all round for Team High Road, the team on the block that is now registered as a pro team in San Luis Obispo. They missed out there when George Hincapie was up in the group, but today they didn't miss out. They have done so well to pull that out of nowhere. We had received radio reports that Cavendish was still awash, and yet he obviously rejoined and he got back up to the front. What a fabulous end to a great day of action today in the Tour of California. And at the end of it all, with 1 day to go, Levi Leipheimer remains the leader of this tour. Just watching Mark Cavendish now being marshalled into the presentation area, and no doubt Bob Roll has left our side. He'll be down amongst it now, trying to get a word with Mark and with Levi. We'll take a break, recover our strength, and we'll bounce back next few moments to bring you all the prize presentations and a chat with the riders and Bob. See you in a moment. Welcome back. We're looking down here on the finishing line in Santa Clarita, and although we have seen Mark Cavendish win the stage, the judges are not announcing the result, so we are suspecting there might be either a protest or a relegation. and we don't know any more than that at the moment. Paul.
Well, we're going to have to wait for that to come through. It takes the judges an awful long time sometimes to decide on the outcome of a sprint, especially when it's a tumultuous one like the one we just witnessed. But I have to say, the Health Net move of the day would have to go to a young man from the Isle of Man in the United Kingdom called Mark Cavendish, because here he was, 1.5 laps to go, 5 miles from the finish, on the ground there in the white jersey on the left-hand side with Mario Cipollini on the right-hand side in the rock racing strip. And when they came up to the line, he came right round the outside of the main field and got himself a phenomenal victory. That's why he's earned himself today the Health Net move of the day.
All right, well, the question is, what have the judges thought about this? Because, as you saw there, Cavendish on the ground a long time. He spun his back wheel. The wheel wouldn't spin. It was obviously bent. He had to change bikes. And the question is, how did he get back to the bunch? That's my personal opinion, Paul. We don't know, but because I saw nothing wrong with his line in the sprint.
No, I think his sprint was pretty fine, Phil, looking at that, but hopefully we'll get that information filtered through shortly.
Anyway, as we look across Santa Clarita, let's go down to Bob Roll, because he is currently now talking with Mark Cavendish.
Mark Cavendish, very tough crash in the finale of the bike race. How do you collect yourself up off the pavement and win the stage? Unbelievable.
You know, after the teamwork my teammates did all day, you know, bringing back the brake, you know, I could not get back on then. You know, they'd done so much work, it would have been a waste really. We still had Gerald to sprint, but you know, I wanted to get on and like make sure we won it, you know. So you know, I had to change my bike. My bike was a bit damaged, got on, and then yeah, I wasn't so far behind that I was able to get through the convoy back, you know, and I got back on the bunch, and then the last lap was just trying to move up gradually, you know, using a couple of corners to dive bomb, and then, you know, I had perfect lead out from Gerald to take me to 200. Lost his wheel with about 300 to go, and then, yeah, if I was 10 back, you know, and there's a few, like, you know, smaller riders just getting in the way, going backwards, and it was a case of trying to dodge them. I saw a gap and just went 200 to go. And I know when there's a gap, even if I'm 10 back, I'm going to be first across the line then, so, yeah.
What's it like to have a man like Gerald Schulich leading you out? You really want to get the win then?
It's brilliant, you know. You know, he's a great guy. You know, we've grown up together through the amateur stages. We know we worked well together last year, and we knew we were going to work well this year. And I think it showed already, you know.
A long time coming, but High Road finally got a great stage. Maybe the best so far.
I know, and what a dramatic one as well, eh? So, yeah, I know, I'm happy for it. You know, the team road's so amazing today to bring back the break. And, you know, we had to finish off with a win, really.
Let's see your red badges of courage.
And we're going to grab.
Congratulations, Mark.
Thanks very much, Bob.
Rider, isn't he? Mark Cavendish there now, unofficial list now. He's winning the stage ahead of Luciano Pagliarini, Juan Jose Aedo, Paolo Bettini and Gerard Cholik. They're the top 5 as were announced, but those, by the way, have since been withdrawn pending appeal. So we're not too sure whether we're going to be able to give you the correct result before we leave you off at 4 o'clock. Oscar Ferrer crossing the line in 6th place. Mario Cipollini, he was trapped in the centre of the pack in 8th. The top 10 completed there by Markus Zerberg of Gerolsteiner and Switzerland. That team decimated in this race by injury, by illness, by the way. And a few more for you there to complete the top 15 by Angel Gomez of the Sony Duval. But I can tell you, just after they crossed the line, the judges did announce that Mark Cavendish was the Tachyon Most Aggressive Rider of the Day award winner. And I suppose they gave him that because of the way he rejoined the peloton. Miller, you see, in 19th place today, despite being caught in sight of the finish. He really did have a good go, didn't he? Well, let's have a look again and see if we can learn anything from our pictures of the problem out on the highway. It's very unusual, Paul, sprinters collide like this, but clearly something happened.
Well, everyone was taking lots of risks, I think, to stay up at the front end of the main field. The fact that there are so many rock racing riders there indicates that they were up at the front end of the main field when this accident happened. But involved in that accident, in the white jersey of Team High Road there, was number 32, the young rider from the United Kingdom, Mark Cavendish. That was dramatic. That was Freddie Rodriguez on the ground there as well. He went down very hard indeed, and we don't know yet whether or not he actually managed to get up and finish. Just looking at the sprint here, you can see that is actually Tom Bonin on the front there. I think he was trying to lead the sprint out for Paolo Bettini in the white jersey a bit further back, but he's lost out. The Canadian rider who leads the sprint competition there in the green jersey, Dominique Roland, starts the sprint, but just a little bit too soon.
Yes, and at that time he had Oscar Freire right on his back wheel. That should have been job done for Freire when he made his move. But moving up the line is coming Mark Cavendish on the left of our picture. Look at the speed of him. Now, from these pictures, he's done absolutely nothing wrong except deliver a killer sprint to win by 2 lengths. And that's why Cholik's got his arms up in the air, because it's his teammate Cavendish who has won. So whatever their judges are considering, it has happened long before this sprint.
Well, it certainly is. I think the sprint was fairly straight. Look at the way he accelerates coming up on the right-hand side there. That's a phenomenal acceleration by this young man who still is only just 22 years of age. But I think if there is a question, Phil, it is going to be a little bit further out on the course. How did he get back in that 5 miles to get right back up to the front end of the main field?
I must say, the rider in the Herbalife lime green jersey there, I thought he made the move, but when he came round that corner, he'd led out far too early. And we're looking back here at Freddie Rodriguez now. He's clearly hurt his right ankle here. And Freddie's a tough boy, believe me. He doesn't do this unless he really is hurt. That's really sad to see, because it could be that tomorrow Freddie won't be starting this race.
Well, he is a tough man. He's one of the top sprinters on the world circuit of professional cycling, and if Freddie is suffering like that, he obviously went down very hard. I do think I heard the race referees say that he'd crossed the finish line, so that's pretty impressive.
Yes, you've got to cross that finishing line to be able to start the next day, so Freddie has the option overnight. Let's hope he gets better. Well, all the results we're showing you now are provisional, but I don't think there's any doubt about this cluster of 5 men. They weren't involved in anything wrong today. They finished together. They stay exactly the same time gaps to go into tomorrow's final stage. Levi Leipheimer is 49 seconds ahead of David Miller. That almost changed in the last 3 miles today. Zabriskie holds on to 6th, 7th for Chris Horner, 8th for Jürgen van der Volle, who has moved up into 2nd in the Californian Tourism King of the Mountains competition. Gessing is still there as well. These names are all holding the positions they had at the start of the day, although for a while it looked as though it might have changed just that little bit. Ben-Jacques Main still doing a great ride for Bissell Pro Cycling Team, holding on to 16th place. Well, I think Bob Roll is now scuttled around. He's found the race leader, Levi Leipheimer. Let's go back to Bob.
Deep into the finale of the bike race, a pretty dangerous move going off the front just at the end of David Miller. Your teammates had been on the front going about 45 k's an hour, but suddenly they had to go 55 k's an hour with just a couple of miles left in the race. How desperate was that?
Yeah, I had a feeling David would try something, and right at the moment when I was kind of boxed in, he went, and I panicked a little bit, but Chris Horner, Chechi Riviere, Sergei Ivanov, they were all over it, and you know, I owe a big thank you to them.
And throughout the day, the tempo set by your team, what does it feel like to see your riders on the front all day?
Well, I know how hard it is for everybody, and everyone's tired, and my guys have done a lot of work, and they're looking forward to tomorrow and getting this thing over with, but we got one more day.
What happened out on the course to Vladimir Gusev? We got the report that he went down and he's out of the race. Is that a blow to the team strategy for tomorrow's stage?
Yeah, I don't know exactly what happened, but it's certainly a big blow to miss the Goose. He's one of the strongest riders on the team, and that's bad news for us.
Tomorrow you got a long climb before a sweeping descent into Pasadena. How thrilled will you be to get that over with?
Yeah, it'll be nice to get it over with, but you know, I got to be ready for anything tomorrow, so I'm not letting my guard down.
All right, well, congratulations on another day in yellow, and good luck tomorrow.
Thank you.
Well, quite a controversial day today. Poor old Gusev going out injured as well. This is the route for tomorrow. The Amgen Tour of California goes up to nearly 5,000 feet. This is no easy final day. In fact, it's the hardest final day this race has ever known. And it finishes with 5 laps downtown in Pasadena. And so that means the last 22 miles are racing in the city itself. We are hearing that Mark Cavendish has been relegated from the first place. That's all we can tell you at the moment. So the rider in second place, Pagliarini, one presumes, will be crowned the winner of the stage tonight. But relegation does not mean disqualification. So tomorrow we can expect to see Mark Cavendish back in the action. There's the situation with all the stars. They line up now, and tomorrow it is a ride of 93 miles, another 4 hours in the saddle. Rain is forecast. Let's hope it doesn't come. Don't forget to stay with us as we head to the Rose Bowl in Pasadena. We will be live again for another 2-hour show, 5 Eastern Time, 2 p.m. Pacific Time, and we will crown all of the champions tomorrow in this year's terrific Amgen Tour of California. And at the end of the day, the judges relegated Mark Cavendish. They penalised in 20 seconds. He won't worry about that, but he'll be very upset about being kicked off the #1 position today. And Levi Leipheimer does keep that yellow jersey. Don't forget, we'll always keep you updated with all of our sport, including cycling. www.versus.com is where you go. Wow, this was a great day, but I bet you it'll have nothing on tomorrow. For Bob Roll, Paul Sherwin, and me, Phil Liggett, we look forward to your company. 2 p.m. Pacific Time tomorrow. Till then, goodbye.